I'm Erin from TechGadgetsCanada.com, and for anyone who's been following my channel for the last year or so, you'll know I've been working with my husband on customizing a camper van. We bought a 2007 Dodge Sprinter van from a carpet layer. It was a bit beat up and basically used as a work truck, but we decided to use this raw shell and turn it into a home on wheels and a customized, really comfortable, chic, modern camper van that we could really enjoy for weekends away from the city. I'm going to give you a bit of a tour of all of the things that we put into the van, some of the changes we made, some of the customizations we added, how we handled power, and what we did to make it look really great at the end of things. So with the help of my husband Roger, I will give you a tour of the outside of the van and then all the really cool stuff we put inside. And early heads up, if you end up liking this video and finding it helpful, to please hit that like button and consider subscribing, since it does help me keep making more videos that I hope everyone out there can watch, enjoy, and learn from. One of the first things we had to deal with when we started customizing this van was the shell and some problems with it that we discovered. We stripped out the inside, basically took everything that the carpet layer had inside the van out so that we had a blank canvas to start with. But one of the things we realized pretty on was what you can see just right here, and that's that there was a lot of rust kind of hidden on the inside and under some panels. So there's a plastic panel that is actually supposed to cover that little rust spot. And we haven't been able to get it back on because it's actually too rusty and won't hold it on. So that was one of the first challenges. And I'm going to hand it over to Roger to explain what he ended up having to do to sort of mitigate the serious rust problem we found.
So Erin's told you about the rust, and if you were to take off all of these plastic panels, you would see little tiny holes that these kind of hold onto the van through, and they'd all be kind of rusted through. So clearly what happens is water comes down the side, seeps in behind these panels, and then it just starts to rust out the body from those holes out. That's why you can see these holes right here. They're all rusted up. So there wasn't really a ton we could do about that. We kind of ground off as much of the rust as we could, and then to maybe stop the rust from continuing from growing, we used some primer and some rust stop spray-on chemicals, and then we hit it with rocker paint. So this is this black rocker guard paint that you can buy. We bought it at Canadian Tire here in Canada. You can get it at pretty much any automotive store. And that was just sort of to offer a little bit more protection here on the bottom panels. What you see here is black, would otherwise be silver when it came out of the factory. And one last thing that you need to know about, and you're probably going to get into this, but learn how to Bondo. This part of the van was completely deteriorated, and now it's all fiberglass filler. So learn how to Bondo properly, and you can actually do some pretty good fixes. There's maybe like 10% Bondo on the bottom of this van, but it's holding up okay for us.
One of the things we knew we wanted to get right in this van was lighting. We knew whether it was sort of a dark and cold morning and we needed to get some coffee on, or whether we were trying to work remotely here in the van on our laptops or doing some reading, having good light inside was pretty essential. So we opted to get some LED strip lighting off the internet.
So LED lights are great because they're really low amperage. They don't draw a lot of power from your DC system. But they can be a little bit finicky. You might want to learn some basic soldering techniques and some basic, just electrical, in order to get this LED system working for you. What we actually did was we got what are called RGBW LED strips. So that's red, green, blue, and white, so that we can have a full spectrum of color. And then we got some controllers so that we could separate the different LED light strips into zones, and we got a remote control to make it all work. Now this particular setup is called MyLight. I gotta be honest, it works okay for us. I'm actually pretty impressed with how this MyLight works, but there's a lot of mixed reviews on the web about it, and they talk about how, you kind of get what you pay for. It is a relatively inexpensive system. So basically what happens is you affix your light strip to, wherever you want it, and these are adhesive backed, and we've actually got some double-sided tape glued onto wood here. So there's double adhesion going on up here. And then it all comes into this controller. This is the RGBW controller. So it essentially splits the positive and the neutral loads coming, or the positive and neutral wires coming in, and it splits it into four different RGBW, and then one neutral wire coming back. And from that, you got to learn how to program this remote. I'm not going to get into that right now. Maybe that's for a future video, but ultimately what you can have is like disco party lighting going on in your van. If you want everything to be a particular color, you can just really easily select what you're looking for. And of course, all the lights can go on and off really, really convenient, and overall super impressed with how it all worked out. So are the dogs.
When it came to designing the kitchen and putting in the cabinetry, we had a couple of options that we were weighing. Did we want to custom build cabinets for this space and basically have to do everything from scratch, or did we want a bit more of a ready to use solution? We actually opted to go with IKEA cabinets, and honestly, it's a decision I would definitely make again. The cabinets themselves are super easy to put together. They go together really well. They've got this sort of hanging rail system that you can put them on to secure them with. Flies are in here. And we were able to pick out nice white cabinetry to keep everything kind of light and bright in here. That was an overall theme that I really wanted, was a nice light, bright camper van that doesn't feel like we're sort of in the dark middle of the woods. So these IKEA drawers and doors and cabinets, I should say, are pretty great. Put in some organizers, and it just lets us keep everything organized as it should be. All of our gear and stuff, which is a mess in there. One of the other really cool things, and I'm giving full credit to Roger for this, is this solution. We were really struggling with how to keep these doors and drawers shut and looking into a lot of specialized RV solutions. And Roger found these. And basically what these are simple sash locks that you would normally see on a window. And it lets you just keep everything closed, but it'll latch really securely, and it doesn't go anywhere.
So while the sash locks are a pretty cool hack to keep your drawers closed, and those can be had for anywhere between, I think, about $3 and $6 at a store like Home Depot or Lowe's. Like I said, it's a great hack. But the one problem that I have with the IKEA cabinets is that you're going to have to find a way to keep them closed. And so the sash locks, that's great over here, but for this cupboard, having a strap that keeps it shut is obviously not ideal. So I'm still working to improve that. For some reason, this cabinet over here doesn't have a problem. There's really nothing holding this in place. And it stores our fresh water and our gray water tanks. It's all just ratcheted together with a 2x4 that's reinforcing the cabinet at the back. And that's actually anchoring the cabinet to the chassis of the vehicle as well. But these doors have not given us any trouble. They don't fly open during travel. This is just a really simple sink setup. Everything can be had on Amazon. So there is, the sink basin, nice little grill. It comes with a cutting board top. This right here is just a kind of a standard RV or marine faucet. It's got negative pressure and it has to be switched. So there's a power switch right here that you would turn on, and then you can hear the pump operating now. And then when I when I flip up this lever, it'll actually start to draw water from the tank now. There's no water in the tank right now, so the line's not pressurized. And that marine pump is just kind of hidden right under here. If you want to kind of swoop the camera in, you can see it. So this entire setup is going to be somewhere like $20 for the bottles. This is about a $30 pump. The sink setup and the faucet setup, your mileage may vary, your price may vary, but it all can be had relatively easily. And just one more word about the cabinets. These acacia countertops, this was actually a 4x8 piece of decorative acacia wood that's really designed for a kitchen application or a pantry application like this. All we did is rip it and cut it to length and size so that it would fit over top of our over top of the cabinets that we put in, and then just bolted them in place to the cabinets, just as you would with a normal kitchen install. And they've held up really, really well for us. We really like the natural wood grain feel in contrast with the white modern look of the IKEA cabinets.
We are big foodies and we like to cook and eat really well when we're camping. So one of the things we knew we wanted to have in this van was a proper fridge. There's a lot of camper vans you'll see that will use these sort of chest fridges or giant coolers, I guess. And we were not cool with that. We wanted something that's definitely going to keep our beer cold, let us keep a little vodka in the freezer, and allow us to pack a whole bunch of food and keep it fresh when we're on the road. So we opted for this fridge, which is by a company called Truck Fridge. It's one of the bigger models that they carry, and we knew we wanted a larger fridge simply because we do always bring a lot of food and beverages with us. I'll pop it open here. So it's pretty straightforward. Got lots of shelving, different compartments for everything you want to keep in there. There's a light in there. I don't know how well that shows up. And it's fully adjustable. It's also got this freezer compartment in here, and it does actually keep things frozen, which is fantastic. So this was just, it's probably a lot larger of a fridge than a lot of people might put in a camper van, but just because of how we use it and how we wanted to use this van, we knew it was going to be perfect for us.
I'm not sure what the prevailing advice is on how to cover the walls and whatnot. I mean, we spray foamed back here where a lot of people might use pink insulation or a combination of, you know, fiberglass insulation and those cans of gap filler. We just decided, you know, when we got the van and we had it all stripped and naked, to just get it all spray foamed. And we think that was a good decision for somewhere in the neighborhood of $800. Covering the van, a lot of people use tongue and groove wood. We wanted something that was going to be kind of have the modern look that we knew we were going to get with our cabinets. This is just white hardboard. I think you can get this in the neighborhood of $20 a sheet at most of your home improvement stores. However, you know, because of the irregular shape of the vehicle and because you're going to have to kind of shoehorn some things into place from time to time, you might have to, you know, come up with some custom solutions. And that's exactly what this shelf right here is. This is mostly just dimensioned lumber, 1x3 or 1x4. And then we bought some project lumber as well to make the shelf with. But this is sort of like a make it up as you go, do it yourself project, this particular shelf. And my puppy does not think it's the best part of the van at all. But all in all, you know, this really works for us. It was a good solution for us. It was just sort of difficult to design. One last thing while we're standing right here, have a look up and see the Max fan. Ventilation is going to be something that you're going to need in your vehicle, particularly if you're going to use, you know, an alcohol burner or do any kind of cooking in here. Or if you're going to be camping somewhere where it's hot, you're going to want to circulate the air. We chose the Max fan. And this particular Max fan is really impressive. It's super simple to operate. Touch of a button and, you know, it'll open up and start sucking air out. So right now it's actually pulling the air out of the vehicle. So if it were particularly hot in here, for example, we might want to vent the hot air out. Crack a window so that you create some airflow. You know, and vice versa, if you want to actually blow the air from outside in, just push the button will actually reverse the fan. One really cool thing about this Max fan as well that you can see right here is it's got a rain sensor. So if the rain starts to fall outside, this will automatically close. I don't have to worry about it leaking into the vehicle.
Moving on to some of the design choices we made in here. We knew we needed some kind of backsplash solution. We were actually going to put a window back here and really wanted that to make the van nice and bright again. But windows were not to be had with this van. That could be a whole separate video about how many different ways we tried to source windows for this van, both for this side and for the door side as well. If you want to pop the camera over there, Roger. It's made for a window. Like, this is dying for a window in the door here. And we just couldn't get windows and couldn't get anyone to install the windows. And it just wasn't something we were really comfortable doing ourselves. So anyway, back to the design choices. When we knew no window was going over here, I knew I wanted to do something a little fun, a little unique for the van. So this looks like Spanish tile, but it's not. And I don't know how well, even if Roger pulls the camera in, you can tell these are actually just stickers. So they're probably like not even a millimeter thick. They're super thin. And they just, you know, I just designed a grid for them, tried to line them up as square as I could to get them on. And I really like the look. I think it brightens it up. I think it gives it a bit of uniqueness and, you know, makes the van kind of fun and cool. The other thing we opted to do when it came to design is we put in a vinyl floor. Couple things about the vinyl floor. We did the wood look because we wanted sort of to keep that warm rustic feel, and the floor is so dirty right now because we've been camping in here all weekend. But so we just did this, basically this vinyl sheet floor, and it's been great. It's got a couple of dings and scratches in it already, which I'm not super happy about. But then again, we kind of went for the cheapest floor option instead of the more expensive one. The other thing we would do about the flooring, if we were going to do this over again, we only got enough flooring just for this area that you guys can see here along the floor, sort of the runway and the kitchen area. And what I would do next time if we were going to do this is I would put flooring all throughout the whole van. It wasn't so expensive. I think we maybe paid $200, Roger, for the total cost of the floor-ish. For another 100 or so bucks, we could have carried it all the way to the back and had a more uniform look. And there's a reason that I would do it that way. And over here, if you take a look, I'm going to show you why I would do the flooring all the way over. So initially there was supposed to be a special seat here. It was going to be one like on this side, which is basically an IKEA cabinet, IKEA drawer, which has extra storage. Trouble is, when we opted to put in the other feature, which is back behind us here, which is the dog kennel, we realized we couldn't open the doors to the dog kennel if there was a seat here. So because we knew we were going to be traveling with the dogs, hello puppies, we decided not to put this cabinet in here. So if you can see, the flooring kind of ends right there. So we've kind of covered it to the best of our ability and just sort of filled in that gap. But again, if I were to do this over again, I would just put the flooring throughout because it's going to give me a lot more flexibility and versatility to make some of those last minute design changes.
So this is the bed. It's obviously working quite well. When you're building the bed for your camper van, there's a couple of different options and ways that you can kind of tie it all in. And obviously this is going to be part of the structure that's, spans the entire width of the vehicle, and it's really connected to the ribs of the vehicle as well. Some people use aluminum for this, and you can get a product called Power Strut or Unistrut that will actually be a really good, construction product. I just did it with lumber. So all we did was basically bolted 2x4s to the side of the vehicle and then spanned it with some 1x3s. So if you actually want to come in close and look under here, for lack of a better term, it looks just like an IKEA bed sort of in the way it's put together. So these are just slats that kind of span across, and they just look like a bed. But there's really nothing too, magical or intricate about this. It's basically looks like a bed frame that just goes from wall to wall. On top of that, we've got a really awesome futon. I fought and won the right to have a futon in the vehicle, and I absolutely love sleeping on a futon. So comfortable, and my back feels great every morning when we wake up. And then on the front of this is all just, again, like 1x4 lumber that you can be had really cheap at most of your building stores. We painted it with a milk paint to give it kind of a rustic look. And this is kind of the most fun detail of it all. Finding a place to sit and eat and sit and work and just have a table in your van is a bit of a challenge for some people. It certainly was for us. So we decided we would hide it under the bed. There's a piano hinge that just swings up, and it hides this table, which is made out of butcher block, and it's on locking slides. So it comes all the way out. It's at about perfect table height for me to sit on my laptop and do some work, or to cut up some steak and eat it too. And then when you're done, you just sort of slide it away. It locks in place, close it up, and you're safe to travel.
So we still have some finishing work to do on this van. As Roger likes to point out, the camper van should always be a work in progress. But to point out a couple of things we're still working on, I direct your attention back to the door over here. We haven't really figured out a good way to sort of finish the door off and have it fit in with the design of the van. Part of the problem is that Roger actually had to do some repairs on the door mechanism. It wasn't quite closing and locking correctly. So we had this panel pulled off so that if we ever do need to get access to that mechanism in there to get the door open or closed, because sometimes it locks open as well. So that's why that's off. But it's a giant kind of insulation suck. It's not insulated very well, so it lets the heat and the cool in. One of the things we might do is get one of those, if you've seen them, it's like a magnetic curtain almost that just sort of insulates the door, and then we'll put something, maybe some more milk painted wood on the lower panel there. The other thing we've got to do, we designed some storage back in here, and just put some baskets in. This is our games bin. But again, another of the things that I would do if I were to do it over again, we opted not to put the wallboard all over the entire inside. We sort of cut it around the bed frame, thinking, why bother extending the wallboard all the way down? Save a little money. But as you can see, when you look into the little storage cubby that we also built, you'll see the wood, and this whole area under here is kind of unfinished. So again, if I were going to do this over, flooring all the way through, wallboard all the way through, so that it lets us do some adaptations, because there is a thing about this cabinet. Before we put the dog kennel in, we had a beautiful, and I'm going to see if I have a photo of this from the original time we did it. We had a beautiful kind of like wall unit in there, and we had all these baskets and all kinds of storage in here, and then a small area underneath. When we got both dogs, we realized we needed a way for them to both travel safely. So Roger ripped out all of the wonderful design he had put in a lot of work on there and then rebuilt it to the way it is now. So that's meant we've got some openings. There's some trim and finishing work that we could do as well, and some cables we've got to still stash. But overall, we're pretty happy with things. There's, like I say, little minimal final trimming things to be done. But for the most part, it lets us camp out here. It's super comfortable, and we're really happy with the van.
So we're at the back of the van. I just want to show you some of the storage choices that we made. A lot of people call this the garage in the van. So this kind of gives you some more insight into just the lumber that we use to build the board, to build the bed rather, excuse me. And if you kind of look underneath, you can really just sort of see, hey, it looks like, you know, one of those IKEA beds you got for a kid. It's a little disorganized right now. We just packed up and tossed the toolbox, the camp chairs, the stove and stuff like that in there. This is my favorite little thing to do, by the way. Buy one of these little IKEA bistro sets, and then you can have like a romantic dinner in the middle of the woods. So one thing that I definitely wanted to consider when we were building the garage as a storage space is that we like to camp in containers, right? So we like to put all our kitchen stuff in one box, some sleeping stuff in one box. We've got a whole bunch of, we've got a whole bunch of camping equipment that we bring, and we bring them in boxes. And so these are the boxes that I purchased. They fit all our stuff really perfectly. We've actually got 4 of these. And if you can see the spine of the bed here, and the supports underneath it are designed so that this will fit snugly in between what is going to be a partition for the electrical bay over here, right? So just something to consider, what you're packing and what your camping is going to look like, and design your garage around some of the larger items that you want to use. Like I said, in our case, it was these storage boxes. For you, it might be your mountain bike, your climbing gear, your fishing gear, whatever the case may be. Okay, we're gonna briefly look at electrical, and just like every single disclaimer on this stuff, I'm not giving you advice. You should seek a qualified electrician, but I do have one piece of advice that I think that I will give you. First of all, please pardon the mess. We just installed the solar, and before we cut the cable on it to make it all fit, we wanted to give it a really good test run to make sure it all works fine, and it does. Thanks to Renogy for helping us design that system, because it's really helped a lot. Some key components of your electrical system are going to be stuff like a solar charge controller, obviously a battery. This right here is a 12 volt 100 amp hour battery, a power inverter if you'd like to be able to convert from DC to AC, so you can plug in certain things that you would normally plug in at home. Just on the other side of the power inverter, you can see hang on a second, see if I can get my finger right there. That right there is the what's called the battery, it's not the inverter, isolator, the battery isolator. This allows the battery to be charged off of the alternator when the van is running. And you can purchase them that have like a reverse. So if your van battery dies and you need to start the engine off the auxiliary battery, you can use the battery isolator to do that with a push of a button. One more thing, we've got a fuse panel just on the other side of the inverter that you can't see too well from here, but no, there it is. Now you can sort of see exactly what we're dealing with. And these are all the lines that are, coming from load items. The accessories inside the van are coming back to the fuse panel before they come on back to the controller, which eventually goes into the battery. Now, a word about cables and fuses. First of all, you've got to make sure that everything is fused properly. Your fuses have to be the right size. They're protecting your system and making sure that nothing sets on fire. The second thing is, when you go to buy cables to run your electrical system, this is the only piece of advice I feel qualified to give you. Buy welding cable. Okay, welding cable can be rated the same, comes in the same sizes and ratings as other electrical cable. The reason why you want to use welding cable is because rather than having just a couple, maybe like 5 or 7 strands of copper braided together and twisted together, welding cable has hundreds. So it's really flexible. It's really easy for you to, slide through all the nooks and crannies in your van, and it's going to save you a ton of trouble and a ton of headache. Making your own cables is some pretty difficult stuff. If you find it too difficult, go ahead and outsource that activity, have somebody else do that for you. But when it comes to running the cables throughout the vehicle to power all your accessories and to keep everything, fit, you want to use welding cable.
One other thing I'm going to tell you about while we're back here looking at the back, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of just right here. We added I guess it's an RV antenna from a company called SureCall. And this antenna is basically designed to boost your cell signal when you're in places with service that's not so great. So it doesn't create a cell signal where there is no signal already, but it will amplify what you have. So we got the bigger antenna that's meant for RVs. It pulls in a little more power, and we just stuck that up on the roof there. There's also an antenna that goes inside the vehicle, and if you hold your phone near that, it actually gives you a lot more power. We can basically go from having one bar ordinarily to flipping that booster on and turning that antenna on and getting almost full power, full bars. One of the other things I opted to do, storage is key when you're on the move. So I went on Etsy.com and gave some dimensions of our door to a seamstress and just sort of explained what I was looking for, which is a whole bunch of pockets for storage. We've got, fire starting supplies in here, some newspaper to start the fire, and this upper area here doubles as kind of a bedside table, I guess, when you're sleeping. So when the door is closed and we've got our smartphones or headphones or books or iPads, whatever have you, they just get tucked away in here, and it's really convenient because the other thing we were doing before we had this, everything was sort of either just sitting on the bed or just to the side of the bed and sliding around and getting lost in the covers. So this allows us to keep everything from the bedside stuff to the other camping supplies that we have nice, neat, and organized.
When it comes to insulating your van, you're going to want to insulate everything, and that goes for the floor as well. When we stripped this van down, we ended up with like the ribbed floor underneath it, right? So what we did is we ran really narrow strips of foam between all those ribs to kind of get the floor up to a level height. Then we put this pink foam board underneath it, or on top of that rather, taped it all together at the seams, and then you're going to want to use an adhesive to keep this stuff glued to the plywood that we put on top. This is just 3/4 inch plywood I had scrap laying around the garage. You could really use fir flooring or whatever you wanted to do, but so that's basically the flooring system that we have here. So plywood on top of this rigid foam board, on top of some smaller strips of foam right on top of the floor of the vehicle, and that makes it warmer as well as quieter, which is very, very important.
That's everything you need to know about our custom camper van. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please hit that like button and consider subscribing, since it does help us keep making more videos that we hope everyone out there can watch, enjoy, and learn from. I'm Erin. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram. Until the next time, I'm at ErinLYYC. You can also catch me at facebook.com/techgadgetscanada. And don't forget, if you want to read more about the other aspects to custom building our camper van, you can head over to techgadgetscanada.com.